歡迎翻返嚟收聽 AM1320華僑之聲主辦疏有線電視揭辦嘅2020年 BC 省論壇，我係主持梁新全。Welcome to the 2020 BC Election Forum, hosted by AM1320 and co-hosted by Saw Cable. My name is Edmund Leung, and I will be your host for today. 好啦，今日請嚟呢有3位參選嘅議員嘅候選人。Today we have invited 3 of the candidates who will be running for the 2020 BC election. 第一個環節呢，我係會準備咧介紹幾位候選人。咁佢哋咧每一個人咧會有1分鐘嘅時間咧介紹佢自己。咁啊大會咧就會安排咗已經抽咗獎係排先排好啦。OK. First, I will introduce each candidate, and each will have 1 minute to introduce himself or herself. Okay. First, I would like to introduce representing Green Party, Stephanie Handy.
Thank you, Edmund. My name is Stephanie Hendy. I'm the BC Greens candidate for Vancouver-Langara, and the major reason why I've decided to run in this election is because I want to increase the equity of the people that live in my riding and in the province by removing barriers to access for people with low to moderate incomes and people with disabilities.
大家好，我係代表綠黨競逐溫哥華 Langara 社區嘅 Stephanie Handy。我今次競逐呢個候選人係因為我想提高社區嘅公平待遇，同埋幫助中低收入同埋殘障人士更容易融入社區。
Okay, thank you. The next one will be from Liberal Party. 跟住落嚟咧係自由黨嘅李耀華 Michael Lee。Hello,
I'm Michael Lee. I have been the MLA for Vancouver-Langara since 2017. I'm running for re-election. As many of you may know, I've been born and raised in Vancouver. My parents came from Hong Kong in the 50s and 60s. I was a community volunteer working with many different impact organizations since 1984, and I've been a business lawyer for 20 years. And stepping forward with Andrew Wilkinson, the BC Liberals,It's important that we continue to ensure that we have a healthy, sustainable and safe community in Vancouver-Langara.
我係省自由黨 Michael Lee。我父母係50到60年代從香港移民嚟到加拿大。我係溫哥嘅土生土長嘅溫哥人。我係超過35年係同社區組織做咗個委員，係發展呢個商業嘅律師20年啦。我2017年成為省議員。係希望有建立一個健康、繁榮、安全嘅社區。
跟住落嚟咧係代表新民主黨 representing NDP 嘅 Tessica Trong。
My name is Tessica Trong, 張慈英 Trung Tuan, and I'm running to be your next MLA in Vancouver-Langara with the BC NDP. I'm a climate and community strategist and advocate, and I've had the great honor of being awarded the City of Vancouver's Greenest Leadership Award, the Real Estate Foundation's Land Award, and also the Downtown Vancouver's Business Improvement Association's Emerging Leaders Award. I was also a key organizer that persuaded the City of Vancouver to adopt one of the strongest municipal housing strategies. I co-founded an organization called City Hive to transform the way that young people are involved in decision-making in their cities. I've also served on the Mayor's Engaged City Task Force, on SFU Senate, and advised the BC Minister of Environment, and I'm just getting started.
大家好，我係張慈英，溫哥華蘭加拉區新民主黨嘅候選人。我一路致力於參與同提倡應對社區同氣候改變嘅策略，非常榮幸得到多次嘅獎項，包括溫氏綠化城市領袖獎。2017年我同社區伙伴合作，說服溫氏採用以房屋為先嘅原則，成為長而有力嘅房屋政策。
Thank you. After the introduction, let's get the show go. OK， 論壇而家正式開始啦。第二個環節呢係由我做發問。我會用英文同埋廣東話發問，每位候選人呢連同翻譯咧會有2分鐘嘅時間做回應。Okay, Part2. I am the boss. I will provide a question in both English and Cantonese, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer and must be in both English and Cantonese. And the first question I will be asking will be Liberal Party. Okay, listen to my question. The next government is facing large economic problem caused by pandemic. An economic decline of 6.7% was forecast this year, while the budget is projected to post a deficit of about almost $13 billion for 2021. What can your party do to improve it？ 下一屆政府咧將會面臨巨大嘅經濟問題，預算今年經濟將會下降6.7%，而2020至2021年嘅財年預算赤字咧將近接130億。咁我想請問下貴黨有啲乜嘢建議去改善呢個環境呢？ Liberal Party, please.
Under the BC NDP and John Horgan, we have seen 23 separate increases and new taxes for this province, increasing $6 billion in terms of the tax burden on all British Columbians. We've seen a drop in employment, where BC used to have, under the previous government, the highest employment rate. Now it's the 5th lowest. British Columbia cannot continue under John Horgan's leadership. He has no economic recovery plan. Under Andrew Wilkinson and the BC Liberals, they have bold plans, including the elimination of PST for 1 year. That will help get things moving again with small businesses and families. The elimination of the small business tax of 2%. An $8 billion infrastructure program and additional funds. These are just examples of how Andrew Wilkinson and the BC Liberals will get our economy moving again.
我係省自由黨。關於呢個疫情之下咧，係大選咧，咁我哋呢個財政預算13個 billion 咧，其實就係喺呢個 NDP 選出嚟嘅23個 tax 係 increase 咗啦。咁呢個總共10個 billion， 咁但係帶動到我哋嘅即係工作咧係跌咗嘅，咁變咗我哋好多人失業。咁而我哋取消呢個 PST 咧，其實係帶動到我哋小型嘅商業繁榮，同埋幫助家庭嘅生活平衡。咁而我哋自由黨嘅黨領咧係已經準備晒好多計劃，係幫助我哋呢個BC 省係重復呢個繁榮嘅。
Thank you. The next will be NDP 新民主黨，唔該。
Same question?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, it will be the same question for all three.
Oh, for all three. Okay, sounds good.
To be fair.
Okay, sounds good. Do you mind repeating the question, just so I hear it one more time? Sorry.
Oh, okay.
對唔住啊。
The next government is facing a large economic problem caused by the pandemic. An economic decline of 6.7% was forecasted this year, while the budget is projected to post a deficit of almost 13 billion for 2020 to 2021. What can your party do to improve it?
Absolutely. And first off, I'd like to say that for the past 3 years before COVID, our government, our BC NDP government, actually had a balanced budget every single year, right? It was only now that we're going through this COVID pandemic that not just BC, but every single province and the federal government as well are now in a deficit, because we need to make sure we had to put a pause to our economy. We had to make sure that we were supporting people's health and their well-being, right? And we needed to make sure that seniors and the most vulnerable were taken care of, right? In terms of supporting people moving forward, we are committed to a recovery benefit for individuals and families who have been most hit, most harmed by the COVID, to make sure that we're stimulating the economy and supporting people so that they can get back to work, they can start new good jobs, and also make sure that we're moving forward and moving from COVID, not just emerging from it, but also becoming more resilient and stronger afterwards as well.
我想首先講呢，就係話其實我哋新民主黨，我哋3年前我哋其實係我哋嘅財政呢，我哋係有得到個平衡嘅，係就係因為大流行嘅影響，其實唔係單止 BC 省，亦都係我哋聯邦政府或者其他省份，我哋係需要將呢個經濟暫時放緩，然後呢將我哋係我哋嘅注重呢係俾年老嘅或者係受弱勢社群，希望佢哋喺健康上面係得到保障。我哋嘅復甦計劃，我哋係希望可以幫助我哋嘅選民係渡過呢個難關，可以重回返我哋以前嘅健康嘅情況。
Thank you. 跟住落嚟咧係 Green Party 綠黨。
Thank you for the thank you for the thoughtful question, Edmund. Yeah. So what the BC Green Party wants to do is end oil and gas subsidies. So during the BC NDP government, they actually increased oil and gas subsidies by 75%, even though they ran on a platform to stand up for the environment. So in not giving all that money to oil and gas subsidies, we would have a lot more money for reinvesting in the economy. And the BC Greens voted down the gas fracking pipeline 14 times. That means that 84 MLAs of 87 voted in favor of destroying the environment. So there isn't really, we can't have jobs if we have no planet.
Translation.
首先我覺得要重啟經濟呢，我哋係要結束呢個對石油煤氣公司嘅資助。之前個政府呢，佢係呢冇減少，反而增加75%。我哋多咗錢，但係亦都冇投放翻喺經濟上面。所以其實我覺得應該將呢啲錢擺翻去幫助環境，因為如果環境唔好嘅話，經濟再好都冇用。
Thank you, Kumail. Okay, it's coming to the third part of the forum. Actually, this is the part that I really like. It's called cross debate between candidates. Okay, each candidate can ask a question to one of your opponent. The time limit, including translation, is 2 minutes, and the opponent will have 2 minutes, including translation, to answer. Okay， 咁喺呢個環節咧，其實我最中意嘅，因為咧係互相提問。咁每一次發問咧係要有2分鐘時間，而每一個答題咧亦都係2分鐘時間。咁你咧係要指定一個對手嘅。You have to designate one opponent that you're going to ask a question for. Okay, let's start the game. Let's start with NDP 新民主黨先啦，唔該。
Okay, sounds good. So during the past 3 years,
Okay, who are you?
Oh, sorry, I will ask my colleague, the incumbent.
Okay,
yeah.
Liberal.
Yeah, the Liberals.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So over the past 16 years, the BC Liberals, under the BC Liberal government, we saw cutbacks in services, whether that was for seniors, whether that was for healthcare, whether that was for education. The housing market spiraled out of control. We now live in a city that we cannot afford. And British Columbians struggled to be able to stay and to be able to afford to live in their communities. So why should voters trust the BC Liberals?
我以下呢個問題係想問現任嘅候選人 Michael Lee， 係過去自由黨佢哋所執政嘅16年，其實佢哋係一路係削減經費，係尤其是長者嘅健康方面嘅、教育方面嘅，甚至係房屋方面嘅。我哋可以見到係過去咁多年佢哋執政嘅時候，我哋嘅房屋嗰個地產嘅市場一直係往下跌。咁我就想知道其實選民點解而家其實係因為佢哋嘅管理嘅問題，而家選民已經係非常之係日常係掙扎到。我想係問大家選民，佢點解係需要仲係繼續係投選自由黨呢？
Okay, Liberal Party.
Thank you. Under the BC NDP, when we talk about balanced budgets, for those 16 years, there was a strong economic record. It left, in fact, this BC NDP government, a minority government, a $2.7 billion surplus. As I mentioned earlier, 23 increases in taxes and new taxes have raised $6 billion for this NDP government. That's $8.7 billion. And that's what they call a balanced budget. That is a concern. As we go forward, they have not built any hospitals in 3.5 years. Under those 16 years for the BC Liberals, over 14 hospitals were built, as an example. Child care spaces, the NDP promised $10 daycare. John Horgan said after the election, it was just a slogan. He came forward with a fake promise, and people bought it. This is what you get with the NDP. And who would call an election in the middle of a pandemic?
好多謝呢個問題。咁喺過去16年裏邊，我哋咧即係平衡咗預算嘅。咁如果呢個少數政府推出咗咁多個23嘅稅項咧，係將我哋嘅個即係經濟上咧係帶動咗一個停滯。 咁其實過去 NDP 咧，政府咧係冇增加咗醫院，但係我哋 BC Liberal 咧就係增加14間㗎。咁啊，關於喺呢個兒童嘅 child care 裏邊咧，個10蚊咧，我哋係會照顧到家庭嘅需要，唔係好似 NDP 只係得個講字，係做唔到個實質出嚟嘅。
Okay, thank you. Next, to ask a question will be the Green Party. Look down. Who are you going to ask?
I'm going to ask Michael Lee a question.
Okay, Liberal.
Yes, thank you. My question is that since living in Marpole, I've noticed that there's been a lot of huge developments where a lot of short buildings have been demolished and then reconstructed with huge towers that are all for condos. So I just want to know that if you get re-elected, what will you do to preserve rentals for low and moderate income earners?
我係想問自由黨嘅代表，由於我住喺 Marpole 市區，我留意到而家有好多新起嘅建築物，好多新嘅condos，而拆咗好多原有嘅buildings。我想問，如果你重新再當選嘅話，你點樣會去保留呢啲原本擁有嘅建築物呢？
多謝。Liberal.
The role of the provincial government must work with the City of Vancouver to ensure that we have a strong plan that's integrated, to ensure that we have the health, the education, the social infrastructure, transportation, to support the increasing density that's being created on Canby Street, on Oak Street, Granville Street. And we need to ensure, certainly, that there's the right mix of housing, including for family and for rental housing. And that there are a number of projects that are coming forward, as the Green Party candidate mentioned. But we need to ensure that when we have provincial dollars going into an area of the city, that it is matched and ensured that we have the right kind of housing that's being created. I have, since I've been elected, co-chaired a seniors network, reaching out to isolated seniors in the Marpole area. We recognize the challenges there, and we need to ensure that there is the right mix of housing, either for low-income people, but also isolated seniors as well.
多謝綠黨嘅問題。咁其實我哋Liberal咧就係一定要係同呢個溫哥華市咧係合作，一個好強而嘅計劃，係帶動咗我哋健康、教育、交通嘅問題。咁至於關於Canby街有屋啊、君湖街嗰啲交通性嘅問題咧，其實我哋係有注意嘅。咁而我哋個房住嘅方面咧，係對呢個家庭性咧係好重要。咁而我哋省政府嘅錢銀咧，就係希望能夠投放翻每一個城市嚇，咁就尤其是我自己本身都喺呢個耆英嗰方面嘅活動個組織上咧，都係好有接觸。咁係希望咧能夠將我哋呢個平衡嘅住房嗰方面咧，係有低收入同埋一個即係正常嘅生活方式上咧，係帶動到我哋經濟平安嘅。
Okay, now I think it's about time that we should go for a break. BC 省選論壇，咁響繼續第3節嘅時候咧，我提大家咧，一陣間咧就係你哋公眾發問嘅時間啦。咁我哋嘅電話熱線咧係604-267-1320，你打電話入嚟，最好就話埋你會同問邊一個 party 嘅問題。OK， 好啦 ，it's liberal rebuild time, get even time. You gotta pick your opponent. OK， 跟住落嚟咧係由自由黨反擊啦，由自由黨咧選一個對手。Liberal, who are you going to pick?
Thank you. A question for Tessica as the NDP candidate. As we know, this is a very unnecessary election. We're in the middle of a global health pandemic, and it's not the responsible thing for John Horgan and the NDP to do. British Columbians that I talked to on the doorstep, they don't trust John Horgan. He is politically opportunistic by calling an election an unnecessary one when he didn't have to in the middle of a health pandemic. Parents are concerned about their health and safety, their jobs, school reopenings. So to Tessica, why did John Horgan and the NDP call an election in the middle of a health pandemic?
我自由黨係發問俾呢個新民主黨，喺呢個咁不需要嘅選舉之下，點解我哋會有一次舉係競選呢？咁呢個係 證明出嚟，我哋新民主黨 John Horgan 先生係唔能夠信任佢嘅。Oct13係一個非常嘅政治嘅機會主義者。我哋喺民主角度嚟睇，真係一啲都唔好。我哋選民喺呢個咁有壓力嘅時候，要照顧工作，又要照顧兒童上學，又要照顧安全健康。究竟你哋點解要喺呢個時候提出呢個選舉呢？
Thank you. NDP, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. First off, I'm worried that I'm hearing that you're going from door to door on the doorsteps. I don't think that is responsible to do, especially in a socially distant way. I think first off, we went to Dr. Bonnie Henry into Elections BC to see if we could do this in a way that was safe. And I'd also say that this is not the first province that's done this. This is the third provincial election that's happened, and we know that whether or not the election is now, next spring, or the next fall, COVID-19 is with us. And we need to make sure that we can still live, we can still operate, we can still move and move forward together. And election, regardless of when the election will happen, it would be happening during the COVID pandemic. Furthermore, we need a long-term mandate. We need 4 years to really implement the plans we want to take, right? We know that 1 year is simply not going to be enough. And so that's why this election was called.
好多謝你個問題。我最初咧，我非常之害怕 Michael 你係逐戶咁樣去係講我哋新民主黨，我哋係作呢個選舉係一個唔負責任嘅行為。雖然我哋而家係大流行，我哋需要係大家嘅隔離。我哋係根據Dr. Henry 嘅講法。嘅提議，我哋係做呢一個選舉係一個安全性質下邊去舉行。其實我哋而家唔係 BC 省第一個省份去做一個省嘅選舉，其實我哋係第3個省份係做一個省嘅選舉。其實係任何時間，無論係而家，又或者出年嘅春天、出年嘅秋天，其實大流行都會喺我哋活在我哋嘅中間。我哋需要係生活如常。4年嘅我哋需要4年嘅時間係實現我哋對選民嘅一個承諾。所以我哋係喺呢個情況之下，我哋係提議做一個省選。
Okay， 多謝晒 NDP。OK， 跟住落嚟咧，呢個環節咧就係由聽眾發問，每個聽眾咧有30秒鐘發問，就希望你咧係指定一個候選人，同埋最好係一個問題。咁呢個候選人咧會有2分鐘時間係連埋翻譯，咁答案呢係要中文同埋英文。Okay? We are entering into part 4 of the forum. Question from the audience. Audience will have 15 seconds to ask a question to one of the candidates. The candidates include translation will have 2 minutes to answer. All answer must be in English and Chinese. 好啦，咁我哋進入第一個呢，我先請阿 Jeff。Jeff 你好。Jeff，
喂，你好啊！
你好，你嘅問題係問邊個啊
？NDP 啊
？NDP。問啊
！NDP 咧，佢成日都話佢幫嗰啲中產家庭啊，要有 affordable house。但係一旦有中產家庭有 affordable house 咧，佢呢個稅嗰個稅咧全部嚟啦，啲財產權都冇啦。又話 empty tax 啦，咩 tax 啦，學學稅啦，乜都嚟啦，跟住就搶你嘅錢啦。將啲錢咧就俾嗰啲 tenant。
多謝。It's about affordable housing. About
the question to NDP is about affordable housing.
Okay.
The question is about taxation after the affordable housing.
Yes, absolutely. Well, as you know, in 2017, the average housing price had gone up by 55% in 3 years. In the past 3 years, housing prices have only gone up by 3.9%. We know that we're in a housing crisis, you know, whether you're a homeowner and you know, a parent, a grandparent, where your kids can no longer afford to live in the city, can no longer afford to, you know, I have had so many friends who've had to make difficult choices about whether they can stay in the city, whether they can afford to have kids, or whether they have to move far away from their parents or their grandparents and the city that they live and grew up in. So I'm proud that, you know, in 2017, when this government came in, they had a 30-point plan to make sure that we could address affordable housing. We know that this city needs to be affordable for people to stay here, for a strong economy, in order to have people that are going to support us, who are going to be frontline workers, who are going to take care of us during the COVID pandemic. This cannot be a city just for those, who lucked out and got a lottery ticket and had a house and can afford to live here. We know that we need to create a city for all, and this is why this is such important work that the provincial government and the BC NDP is doing.
我想提出嘅，多謝你個問題。我想提出嘅就係喺2017年，嗰個房屋嘅平均嘅價格係上升咗55%。喺過去呢3年，其實呢個房屋價格係上升咗3.9%。我哋深信知道係我哋嘅城市入邊房屋嘅危機係一個重要嘅項目。我哋已經好多人唔可以係可以喺個城市入邊安居樂業，佢哋係一個非常難嘅抉擇。佢哋係逗留喺城市啦，生兒育女啊，抑或係搬離開城市。喺2017年，我哋新民主黨我哋有個30點嘅一個長遠嘅房屋計劃。我哋主要係針對係可以供給係可負擔房屋，俾省民全省嘅每一個居民係我哋可以係刺激經濟，係亦都係支持我哋嘅前線工作人員，好等佢哋可以居者有其屋嘅。
OK, thank you much. 跟住嚟咧，我哋下一個觀眾係 Lina 你好。Lina 唔係坐喺度呢個 Lina， 係電話個 Lina。
Hello. My question is also for NDP because I have noticed that whatever they said is not reliable. According to them, they have already created new property taxes. And then they even raised the property tax from 3.84% to 7%. That means they are driving out the seniors from their own residence. See, seniors are having difficulty with these property taxes, and they will become debted.
Oh, thank you.
OK， 咁我諗我用中文答一下。OK， 咁啊 Lina 就係話咧。佢對於 NDP 咧係冇誠信嘅，佢話佢哋加地稅同埋對啲老人家咧係唔好公平。What do you have to say, NDP?
Absolutely.
地稅咯，加地稅咩
？Okay. Thank you for the question, and I think specifically on accountability, this was actually reported out in the media, but in the past 3 years, the NDP government has already completed or is significantly underway in 79% of the policy platforms that our government committed to. 79%, right? And we've only had 3 years, right? And so in terms of accountability, what we say, we will also do, Whereas with the BC Liberals, we know that there's been cuts to healthcare, there's been cuts to seniors, right? 9 out of 10 seniors were not adequately staffed in long-term care facilities and seniors facilities in 2017, after 16 years of power of the BC Liberals. We know that they don't care about seniors, right? And what we made sure to do was to fund to make sure that not just long-term care, but assisted living, but also home supports and home care were supported for seniors. We are putting seniors first in this COVID pandemic, and we intend to continue to do this over the next, if we're elected over the next term.
好多謝你呢個問題。其實呢，我哋新民主黨係一個問責嘅政府。喺過去3年，我哋其實新民主黨喺我哋嘅政綱上面，我哋已經實行咗79%我哋所承諾咗嘅政綱。請留意，我哋係講緊79%，我哋政綱已經係實行咗啦。對於問責呢一方面，其實我哋都知道喺自由黨佢執政嘅16年，係因為佢哋嘅政綱或者佢哋實行嘅問題，其實有10個長者之中嘅9個，其實佢哋喺一個長遠嘅照顧嘅設備入邊咧，係得唔到一個適當嘅照顧嘅。我哋唔單止係照顧長者，我哋都提供好多係關乎長者其他嘅福利嘅。
好
OK， 多謝晒。跟住嚟咧，我哋就請阿丁生電話。丁生你好。
我想問你 NDP 咧，即係佢係嚟緊呢3年有冇啲 plan 係加最低工資啊？
Okay, this is a question to the NDP. He was asking within the next 3 years, is there going to be another minimum wages?
Minimum wage. Go ahead.
NDP.
Oh, sorry, minimum wage.
Is there going to be another increase of minimum wage?
So, over the past
Upcoming 3 years.
Upcoming 3 years. Yeah.
Oh,
In the future.
right. Okay. So if we are re-elected, that would be ideally a four-year term, if that's possible. And yeah, so speaking specifically to the minimum wage, that is actually a policy platform that was not part of our BC NDP platform. So at this point, I don't think that I can say confidently that I can confidently answer that question. Yeah.
多謝你呢個問題。如果我哋新民主黨係繼續執政嘅話，喺將來嗰4年，我哋希望可以係做到對省民一啲貢獻。因為咧係一個最低工資係暫時喺我哋新民主黨入邊政綱入邊係未曾包括到呢一方面，所以我唔可以好肯定咁樣係承諾係對你有啲任何最低工資嘅承諾嘅。
OK， 多謝晒。好啦，等 NDP 休息下先啦。下一個問題咧係阿朱生係會問 Liberal 嘅。阿朱生你好。
係，我呢個問題係問自由黨嘅。咁我就三級政府都當呢個毒品問題咧係呢個醫療問題。咁但係我自己個人咧認為咧係棘癮問題，我絕不能話將賭博棘癮當做醫療㗎。咁而家咧就係我反對係住斜屋啊各方面。咁而家就香港話要派毒品啦。咁如果自由黨選咗，會唔會我主張係強迫戒毒？咁希望你能夠。
Okay. The question to Liberal is concerning drugs, okay? And everybody's saying that it's a medical problem. And he thought it's a habit rather than a problem, medical problem. He would like to know what the Liberal will do. Will they be giving out like this, like other people say, hand out free drugs?
Under the BC NDP, we have just seen the increase in homelessness. We have seen our city streets and our communities become very unsafe. Andrew Wilkinson and the BC Liberals have announced a very strong community safety plan to ensure that we continue to support and find more supports for those who are challenged with their mental health illnesses as well as drug addictions. We need to ensure that for those who need care, we provide that care, not just shelter. Under the NDP government, all they're doing is housing people, warehousing people, and not giving them the right supports to give them a clear path towards recovery and treatment. That's what a BC Liberal government would do.
Translation, please.
好多謝呢個問題俾自由黨。關於呢個毒品問題呢，其實就係BC 省新民主黨呢過去呢係將我哋無家可歸人士呢增加咗好多嘅，而帶動到我哋呢個社區呢係非常之唔安全，係唔健康。咁喺呢個mental 呢個醫療上嘅問題呢，其實我哋係唔係淨係俾一個地方佢，係需要一個更完善嘅計劃呢去照顧我哋呢班homeless 嘅居民，咁啊令到我哋呢生活上呢係都係健康同安全。
多謝你 Liberal。跟住嚟咧，我會問下張女士。張女士有個問題，亦都係問 Liberal 嘅。張女士你好。係。係，你問啦，問啦，係。
我想問 Liberal 啊，佢點解Richmond 已經咁多人口啦？喺16年啊，佢個醫院佢都唔增加。喺2018年啊，有個年紀大嘅65歲勤苦辛勞工作幾十年交足稅。佢有時中風，去到 Richmond 醫院，佢話你去 VGH 啊，我哋 Richmond 冇醫生冇啲咁嘅。
Okay, I think the question is towards Liberal, and she was asking, for the last 16 years, how come there is no increase in any hospital in Richmond?
Thank you for the question. Certainly, we need to ensure that everyone has good access to emergency care and hospitals in their communities. And as I mentioned before, the BC Liberal government record is to build 14 new hospitals around this province. Under the NDP, they've built nothing. Nothing in 3.5 years. There was a commitment prior to the 2017 election to build a Richmond hospital expansion. And that has not been progressed under 3.5 years of NDP government. Andrew Wilkinson recently announced again that under a BC Liberal government under his leadership, a top priority will be to build the additional tower at the Richmond Hospital.
咁 係過去呢個我哋 BC Liberal 嘅黨裏邊呢，其實我哋係最重要係要 make sure， 即係我哋係能夠有一個好直接嘅渠道去到醫院係得到援助。其實過去我哋已經係建造咗14間新嘅醫院喺整個省BC 省裏邊，而 NDP 過去3年呢係冇做過任何嘢。咁我哋嘅黨領 Angel 呢係我哋一個領導人啦。咁就係會加強呢一個醫療制度上呢，因為本身佢都係醫生嚟嘅，咁所以希望呢，我哋係能夠照顧到我哋嘅大眾。
多謝晒。跟住我哋電話呢係阿周太，周太你好，周太。
Hello, how much the government has spent on fentanyl already? Any long-term plan to help drug addicts to detoxify or reopen the mental hospital?
呢個問題係 NDP 嘅係咪啊？OK, NDP 嚇。
Yeah, that's a great question and thank you. Oh, sorry. 對唔住。
佢又想問，即係NDP 對於毒品問題有乜嘢貢獻？啊，同埋佢哋用咗幾多錢落去醫呢個 fentanyl？
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that great question, and that's actually one of the reasons why I really want to run. I know that we've had the opioid crisis, or as people are calling it, the poison drug supply crisis, that's been impacting Vancouver, but also so much of BC. There's been so many deaths, more deaths from that than actually from COVID-19, and this is a really important issue. Our government has actually advocated to the federal government for support because, as you know, this is a shared jurisdiction. This is something that us as a provincial government, we do have we have limited powers to actually impact this issue, and we need federal support in order to advance the legislation that we need to do this.
Thank you. OK， 最後一個。OK， sorry。
多謝你呢個問題。其實咧，你所問呢個問題咧，其實就係我需要係作出呢個參與呢個競選嘅其中一個問題。其實呢個濫藥嘅問題咧係非常之嚴重嘅。其實係因為濫藥而死嘅人咧係多於係我哋新冠肺炎而死嘅數目。咁係因為呢一個項目係因為我哋係省嘅同埋聯邦政府係一個共同管轄嘅項目，所以我哋希望多得到聯邦政府嘅支持嘅。
OK， 多謝晒。跟住落嚟我哋係聽阿 Lina 嘅電話。Lina 你好。Lina， 李生，我係 Lina。好 ，Lina 收個線啦，不如聽下李生電話啦。李生你好。
係咪我啊？
係啊，你啊。
OK， 咁我係想問自由黨。自由黨係。你哋自由黨喺如果你哋當選嘅話，有啲咩政策係可以刺激到經濟咧？因為好坦白講，我對發展係冇興趣。最緊當你嘅經濟搞活咗之後咧。嗰啲人有嘢做，經濟發展係成人都富裕，嗰個先係你哋嘅主題。我希望你哋多做一啲呢啲咁嘅建設性嘅
Okay, this question is towards the Liberal, and he's asking, what will the Liberal do to improve the economy of BC?
This is the critical issue for our province that we face. This is a worldwide pandemic. It needs bold leadership. It needs experienced leadership. And that starts with Andrew Wilkinson. He is a competent, compassionate leader. With his background in government, as well as his training in law and medicine, like myself, a business lawyer for 20 years, these are the capabilities that will help lead this province forward in a way that is done without adding to the significant tax burden that the NDP have made. The $6 billion in taxes, with 23 new and raised taxes. Andrew Wilkinson has come forward with a significant tax cut, eliminating the PST of 7% to 0 for the first year, eliminating the small business tax by 2% completely, finding ways to assist struggling industries like the tourism and the hospitality sectors. The NDP have done nothing for those sectors. And second, and lastly, in terms of the $8 billion in infrastructure spend, additional to help move forward with the Richmond Hospital and other important infrastructure around our province, like the George Massey Tunnel, tunnel replacement project.
如果你 BC 自由黨係當選的話呢，其實面對一個好大嘅困境呢，即係全世界全球性嘅。咁 而根據我哋嘅專業，我哋嘅黨領同我自己嘅專業喺個法律上 lawyer 嘅專業咧，我哋就一定要減低稅項上嘅負擔。而 NDP 咧過去咧就係一路增加到23個嘅稅項咧，係令我哋負擔非常之沉重。BC 省自由黨係將會cut 呢個PST 嘅稅項咧，第一年咧就係維持0，第二年咧我哋只係保留到一個3%。但係喺 BC 省最重要嘅旅遊業同埋呢個整體嚟講咧，我哋係有已經8個 billion 咧係準備去挽救呢個事業，同埋幫助失業人士，同埋幫助我哋起呢個新嘅 Master Tunnel。OK， 而家輪到論壇最後一個環節啦，就係候選人咧連同翻譯咧會有1分鐘時間作出結論。We are coming into the final part of our forum, and each candidate, including translation, will have 1 minute to wrap up. Let's start with the Green Party, 綠黨。
Okay, so my closing statement is that people should be voting for me and voting for the BC Greens if they are concerned about saving our planet, the environment, and if you believe that our province should be doing more to look after your health and well-being.
如果你係關注環境保護同埋希望 BC 政府可以加強照顧省民嘅衛生保健同埋安穩生活，請投我一票。我係代表綠黨嘅。
Next, thank you. Next is Liberal, 自由黨，唔該。
In 2017, when I first ran for election, I knocked on 15,000 doors across my riding in 6 months. This is the way our democratic process should work. The NDP are suppressing our vote. They're suppressing our democratic rights. Don't let them do that. Consider your vote, vote carefully, and I ask for your support to re-elect me as your MLA to continue to build a very strong, healthy, sustainable, and safe community in Vancouver-Langara. Thank you.
我2017年當選為呢個省議員，咁我曾經係敲門超過15個15000嘅人士，咁係都要需要6個月時間。而家咁樣嘅選舉之下，咁匆忙，點能夠做得到我應該做到嘅選舉嘅工作呢？咁唔正常之下，其實對市民對候選人都唔公平。而我過去做過工作呢，我都好希望能夠將會在連任嘅話呢，係帶動咗繁榮同埋呢個健康嘅社區俾我哋Langara呢個社區。
跟住落嚟呢係 NDP 新民主黨。
Thank you to AM 1320 for organizing this conversation, to Michael and to Stephanie for sharing your thoughts. As you know, I'm running to serve you in Vancouver-Langara as your next MLA for the BC NDP. This election provides a crucial choice for voters, a choice to return to the BC Liberals. There are cuts to healthcare, there are cuts to education, there are cuts to housing, or a choice to continue to move forward with John Horgan and the BC NDP. We need a COVID recovery that puts people first, that puts you first. Please vote for the BC NDP and myself, Tessica Trong, on October 24th.
多謝 AM1320 俾我今次辯論機會，亦都多謝現任省議員 Michael 同埋候選人 Stephanie 嘅意見。我會為你，如果你選舉我會為你盡心盡力。今次選舉有一個重要嘅抉擇。如果你投自由黨，就等於你支持削減醫保、教育同埋房屋；你投新民主黨，你就同新民主黨黨領何錦先生同佢嘅團隊同步邁進。我哋需要一個以民為先嘅新冠肺炎復甦計劃。請喺24號投新民主黨神聖嘅一票。
今日 AM1320 華僑之聲主辦、邵氏有線電視 Shaw Cable 協辦2020 BC 省選論壇又嚟到尾聲啦！好多謝各位出席嘅候選人同埋收音機旁邊嘅聽眾，唔記得啦！10月24號星期六去投票啦。That concludes our event of today. Thank you very much for your participation. Hey, don't forget to vote on Saturday, October 24th. Bye.